Where do you think we're going to do top 5 destinations for Shohei Ohtani? Okay.
Yep.
Where you think he is going to end up?
Ultimately,
once he's a free agent,
the trade's a crapshoot. Like what?
It's not his choice.
Right.
This is going to be, where does he want to go? He's going to get to decide where he's going to go.
I've put a lot of thought into this. I've answered this a lot. I have so many people ask me Shohei questions like we talk daily.
Yeah. You got the inside scoop.
Well,
What's he say?
I do know
Where's
him.
he going?
I don't, but we don't frequently FaceTime like my brother and I
Daily?
often do.
Yeah.
So I have put a lot of thought into this for a long time, actually, probably since the beginning of last year, when you start hearing there could be trades and then where's he going to sign, because that's coming up soon. There's been a lot of thought put into this. So my top 5 destinations for where I think Shohei will ultimately land. And my number 5 team just slid into this position because of some recent conversation. My number 5 team is the New York Yankees. And
because of the Smoltz conversation?
No, not because of that conversation. Because some reports came out that I think were kind of smoke and mirrors, but some reports came out that the Yankees are the most likely trade target for Shohei, and that they're going to push fairly hard for that. Now, the reason I now slide them into number 5, I believe far more in my top 4. The reason I have them at number 5 is because I believe if he does get traded there or anywhere, that team will have a bit more likelihood of being able to sign him, just because it's something he'll be familiar with. And I also think
they can court him.
I think yes, absolutely. They can court him. And I think he wants to be on the West Coast, ultimately why he signed where he did. But I think if he gets traded to an East Coast team, it gives him the ability for a couple of months to see if it's something he's willing to do for years.
Yeah, you get to test the waters.
Right, or something that he doesn't want to do. And if it is the Yankees that ultimately get him, that's a pretty good place for him to be with Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole. Like he's not with the Angels. It's like right now he is the star pitcher, and especially with Trout out, he is the star hitter. You go to the Yankees, you have support. All around you. You have Garrett Cole, another ace of a staff. You have Aaron Judge in a lineup. You have the ultimate protection in your lineup. Obviously, he has that with Mike Trout as well. I'm not discrediting anything there. But, you have so much more help around you. I think this is a long shot. It's the least of my picks, but the Yankees are my number 5 destination.
Number 4.
Number 4, I went with the Seattle Mariners.
Interesting.
Mariners for me, here's why. I'll give you a here's why of every team I mentioned. Mariners. I think the original reason he didn't sign there is, from what I heard, didn't want to step on the legacy that Ichiro has in Seattle. Which,
respectful.
If you know the culture at all, that shouldn't shock you. Now, Ichiro's legacy is what it is. Shohei has his own legacy now. We all know Shohei Ohtani. We all know his legacy, and he's not going to step on Ichiro's legacy by going there, because they're now completely their own players and their own legacies. It also, there's a big Japanese following in the Seattle area because of Ichiro, because of past players that have come through there. My friend and translator when I went to Seattle, Masa, lives there. Like there is a Japanese presence there. Also, when he went to the All-Star game, the fan base, he talked about how good they were. We heard firsthand how good they were. They were chanting, "Come to Seattle." They gave him a standing ovation there.
He spends off seasons there.
He's spent an off season there. I mean, we're not talking a long shot here. And every one of these teams has shown a willingness to be able to spend, which is obviously important here because we're talking over $500 million. So Mariners are at number 4 on my list.
All right, who you got at number 3?
At number 3, I have the Giants. The Giants were looking last year to do any and everything that they possibly could to sign the biggest player they could.
Burning a hole in their pocket right now.
There's literally a hole burning in their pocket. They're going to have to fork over a bit more than they were looking to last year. But, I mean, seriously, look, they're a team that is winning, quite under the radar, by the way, this year. That's just like missing that superstar. They pitch well. They have clutch hitting. They're kind of doing it all to a degree this year. without a superstar. Imagine a guy like Shohei coming and joining that team, but just think of what they were trying to do in the offseason.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge. I mean, it was either the Yankees or the Giants. And I know last second the Padres swooped in and like got their name in the conversation.
Offer. Yeah.
But the Giants were serious contenders the whole time, and I think anybody that could have possibly pulled Aaron Judge away from the Yankees, it was going to be the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lose out on him, and they literally agreed to terms with Carlos Correa. And then more contracts or physical stuff came out there, so that didn't happen. And then by the time all that was said and done, everybody's gone and signed. Well, now fast forward 1 year, the next offseason, and you have the biggest free agent in the history of sports. I think they're going to make a pretty hard play at him.
That's fair. Number 2.
Number 2 is the New York Mets. And this one is simple for me. I, again, do not think, I don't think in his heart of hearts, if he could pick, which he will be able to pick, Shohei wants to end up on the East Coast. I don't. With that said, Steve Cohen has the amount of FU money to make a difference. And I don't think Shohei's number one interest is money, but I think there's a big difference between $600 million and Steve Cohen coming along and saying, how's 800 sound? I mean, he has the amount of money to not just move the needle a little bit. It's like a different game he could play with everybody. And I think he wants to play that game.
You know what I'm actually interested to see if some team can kind of throw this offer into wherever he ends up going. You saw Messi just came over to the MLS, right? He got offered over $1 billion to play in the Saudi League, and he turned that down to play in Miami because he got a deal with the TV rights, with Adidas, and the ability to own a team, have partial ownership in a team in MLS after. So I'm curious if we're going to see Shohei Ohtani possibly be that next big star where someone's getting smart enough, where he's getting ownership and stake in team or branding or something, because this is going to be an insane contract wherever it goes.
I've thought a lot about this, and I don't think it happens with Shohei, but at a certain point, the sports world money's getting up so high that like, what's the next thing we do? Let's say the number for Shohei is $600 million. Yeah. Right? Like, imagine it being $250 million with a certain percentage of the team. I don't think owners want to do that right now, and I think that opens up a whole new Pandora's box that will probably come about next CBA agreement, which is a fun topic that will have to be had, but that thankfully it's years down the road.
Yep.
But I think the sports world as a whole is heading in the direction of like, do you just keep more and more and more money, or do you start offering things outside the box, like merch, a percentage of the merch sold, a percentage of the patch money, a percentage of the team.
Yeah, we've seen it in Hollywood too. A lot of actors are not taking a bunch of money up front, and they're getting a percentage of the movie. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so the Mets are number 2 because of Steve Cohen. And you did mention it earlier, there is a Billy Epler connection.
So yeah, Billy Epler, who was the Angels GM, but was on the Yankees assistant GM staff, who was recruiting Ohtani, who then, when he got the Angels job, he got Ohtani to the Angels, is now the GM of the Mets.
Yep.
So that's another little secret factor.
Number 1.
Yep.
Number 1 on my list of top 5 destinations for Shohei Ohtani is the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's the perfect storm. Everything has been pointing to this happening. Shohei wants to win. Yeah. That's goal number 1, okay?
Dodgers win.
Dodgers win. He's also familiar with the California area. He doesn't have to sell. He could still spend time where he currently lives. He'd obviously have to move close to the stadium because you could live 10 miles from the stadium and it could still take you 2 hours to get there.
Yep.
Last offseason, the Dodgers, who are known to do whatever they need to do and to get the big get of the offseason, did nothing.
Weren't even in the conversation.
Weren't even in the conversation for the 4 big shortstops. For a pitcher, nothing. They reset their payroll and got under the luxury tax in preparation for Shohei Ohtani. It just feels like it's going to happen. This is my number one pick of what I think is going to happen. Yeah, it would be quite the move. It would be quite the move to see Shohei in Hollywood. If we're talking baseball and bright lights, if it's tough to beat the Bronx, New York, the New York Yankees. But on the West Coast, that's the Dodgers.
It is.
It's not the Angels.
Nope.
It's the Dodgers. And I think the best case scenario for what we see, not the best case scenario, I think the most likely scenario is Shohei to the Dodgers.